All right, guys. Well, here we are. Jesus Christ, I'm a procrastinator. I probably did that monologue at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. It's like 1:30 in the morning now. What did I do from then until now? I can't even tell you. I went down some fucking abysmal vortex of the internet, just beating off to animals. It's a bunny. No, I'm just kidding. Shit like that. I don't know why I have gotten so incredibly bad at time management. And this is the thing, too. This is the thing that I was thinking about the other day. I actually really enjoy doing videos. Not always. Not always. There's definitely been times, and I talk about this a lot, so you're like, oh, it's a repeat. I hope he talks about reasons that he sometimes doesn't like doing videos. I'm pretty keen to that kind of talk. Jeez. See that, and that's why I do monologues before I do videos, because then when I just come in raw dog like this, things come out awkward, stilted, etc. But there's periods where I like doing videos. I really do. And then there's periods where I don't. I'd have to say right now I'm at a place where I kind of was lackluster for long enough where now I'm like, I'm like all like I want to do them. That's where I'm at right now. That's a good place for me to be, because generally when I get to these like lows, if you've noticed, I have intense ups and downs. Tony O'Neill, the dude that I wrote Anti-Heroes with, by the way, I have no idea what's going on with that project. I reached out to Tony probably like 2 weeks ago because I got this new thing that I'm starting to do where I'm starting to narrate audiobooks. And I'm narrating Seth Ferrante's entire catalog of shit. And I want to do Tony's entire catalog. That's low-hanging fruit. Like, that's good-ass residual. Sorry, I have this like on the back of my neck that I picked, and it feels like there's shit coming out of it, but there's not. It's just a weird thing I do. And so I reached out to Tony. I was like, hey, man, I'd like to narrate your books. I'd like to narrate my own book, Wasting Talent, but I was in rehab at the time, and someone's like, sign this. I was like, oh, and I did, and fuck, I wish I hadn't. I haven't even listened to that audiobook. I just had to like approve it, or so. I don't even remember what the situation. I needed money at the time. I've been in so many fucking situations like that throughout the years where I've needed money and I've signed away rights and shit. I did it with the film rights to my book. I did it with the screenplay Delirium Tremens. There has been just so many fucking times where I've been desperate and I've just signed pieces of paper. I'm like, yeah, I'm a bitch. I'll do anything. Sign it, and then I regret it. Last night, speaking of which, last night, Will Santos, say it, drop his name, the screenwriter of Spun, fucking shook me down. He literally, I don't even give a fuck. I'll say this publicly. That motherfucker pretty much tried to extort me last night for money. This is what he says to me, right? He probably calls me like 50 fucking times yesterday. I'm horrible at getting on the phone with people. It doesn't matter who it is. I'm just one of those people where it's very difficult to like pin me down. Like, I go months without talking to some of my closest friends. Years. It's like some guy I met at a bus stop. I'm like, dude, I'll call you next week. Now he's like a girl. He's like, I got the surgery. Told you to call. All right, what? Anyway, Santos calls me like, probably like 50 times. I'm not even joking. Like, you probably think that's an exaggeration. I could show you my call log. He probably called about 50 times yesterday. And he's got my number. The dude's had my number. He knows where I live. I've slept on the dude's couch like 100 times in my life. But he calls me exclusively on Facebook Messenger. I have no idea why. I wanted to talk. Sometimes I have a love-hate relationship with the guy. Sometimes I want to talk to him. most recently I wanted to talk to him because, well, for a couple reasons. A, he's letting me rewrite the script because I hate the screenplay. I fucking hate the script for Wasting Talent, the movie. It sucks. Damien gets clean. It's not what I wrote. It's some fucking, I don't know what it is, but it's not what I wrote. And, you know, films do that a lot. They'll change the source material into some pussy bitch shit, and that's what happened. So I wanted to talk to him about that because he, for years, when it was in development in the beginning, he would not let me touch it. He's like, no, this is a work of art. I'm like, dude, this is bullshit. You know, so he's finally like at a point where he's gonna like let me. He's like, just do it. You keep talking about doing it. I'm giving you the opportunity to rewrite it however you want. I don't have time to just like rewrite a whole fucking movie. I really should take the time to do that because it's pretty much like, if I can fix that script, we can probably get it made. And I'll tell you what, when the documentary comes out, that shit is going to open a lot of doors. I already know that. If Wasting Talent has not started filming by that point, I can almost guarantee that it'll happen like that. Because by that point, there'll be a franchise that was built. So anyway, another reason I wanted to talk to him was because of the documentary specifically. Because he has, when I got sentenced on the pimping and pandering federal probation violation, when I was in federal court, I posted a picture that I found the other day. He took video of me in court talking to the judge and shit. That's valuable for the doc. Yeah. So I knew that he had it. So anyway, I wanted to talk to him. So he calls me, talks to me for a good hour. He's funny. He's a funny guy. And he's talking to me about just random shit. He always has some random shit. He was telling me this story just to like give you an idea how fucking weird this dude is. I just remembered what he was talking to me about. If you know the painter, Jean-Michel Basquiat, is this black dude with dreadlocks that Andy Warhol discovered. He's my favorite. I love this dude. If he's alive, I'd suck his dick. I'd be like, dude, I don't even suck dicks, but you're so talented. And he died of a heroin overdose. Like, this guy, if you don't know anything about Basquiat, he was this guy that came from a good family. He was in New York, and Warhol was like the king of New York art scene at the time. This is, of course, all the 60s, 70s, and now this is in the 80s. There were all these different incarnations of Warhol and like just weird shit that he was involved with, including the Velvet Underground, which I like a lot. In the 1980s, Warhol had kind of, I don't know, he was just more of like a socialite, going to a lot of parties. Some girl shot him. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie I Shot Andy Warhol. That's a badass movie. If you haven't seen, it's a really good independent film about this prostitute that shot Warhol because he was like exploiting her and like wanted to put her in these movies, and she was over it. She's like, I hate men. She wrote a book called The Scum Manifesto or some shit. Anyway, Basquiat in the 1980s, this is after Warhol had gotten shot. He was a graffiti artist with this other guy, Albert Diaz, that I know. Albert Diaz is still alive. And they would tag Samo all over New York. Basquiat was an amazing graffiti artist. And I love graph. I love graffiti. I always have. I'm decent at it. I should show you some of my sketchbooks from when I was in high school. I was actually a pretty good tagger. I never felt right doing it because my parents drove like Mercedes. They're like leasing new Mercedes. I was like, I'm gonna go fucking spray paint an underpass because I'm mad because you yelled at me. But I did like the art of it. But anyway, Basquiat would sit outside of, like restaurants, and he would make these little postcards, and he would sell them for like $10. Warhol walks into this restaurant one day. Basquiat sees him, follows him inside the restaurant, and is like, hey, I wanted you to see these postcards that I made. Warhol sees it. And if you know Warhol, he was very, very gay. It's like remember in the Doors movies, like Jim Morrison? I pretty much want to suck your dick. And Jim Morrison was like, I'm on peyote, I'm fucking with it. The Warhol sees these Basquiat postcards, and he's like, wow, these are amazing. And then, like that, Basquiat becomes a fucking millionaire painter. Overnight sensation, because Warhol just said, this is the new guy. Johnny Depp could do that for me, but he doesn't. But I still like him a lot, but I don't know. It's weird how culture works. Somebody's cool enough, they can just like point to someone and be like, that guy's cool. And then like some guy in like a trench coat like pops his collar, just like, he is cool. Snaps photos, all weirdo. So Basquiat was a heroin addict. He's in his early 20s, making millions of dollars painting. He overdoses and he's wearing a baseball cap. He dies in the baseball cap. Vincent Gallo, who's a director, who directed Buffalo 66. He was a waiter in Goodfellas. That is an interesting person too. You should definitely look up Vincent Gallo. That guy's fucking crazy. You should see him on his many Howard Stern appearances. And he dated Chloe Sevigny, and he made her suck his dick for this movie Brown Bunny. And as soon as she sucked his dick on film, and as soon as he came, he's like, you're a whore, I'm over you. And he broke up with her after he got the shot, and then he released it. That was a controversy at the time. Vincent Gallo was good friends with Basquiat, and when Basquiat overdosed on heroin, he took this dude's baseball cap. Like, he went into the apartment and he took off his dead body. That baseball cap is worth millions of dollars. Chris Hanley, the guy that produced American Psycho, he's a producer of my documentary. He's the guy that owns the rights to Wasting Talent. He's a big-time art collector, and he had this hat that Basquiat died in. And Will Santos was telling me a story last night about, he's like, one time, man, somebody stole the fucking hat, man, because this hat's worth millions of dollars. Hanley's just like a big-time art collector. And he's like, and I found the hat, and so I took a picture wearing the hat, and I sent it to one fucking person, Ryan. I sent it to one person, and the police came because they thought that I stole the hat. I didn't steal the hat. No. I didn't steal no fucking hat, man. I'm on the phone with him. I'm like, what the fuck is the point, dude? I'm talking to this guy for like an hour last night. And so finally he's like, look, when you first started the documentary, man, you said you were going to give me $1,500, to be a producer. And if you think about it, I'm the producer because I did all the producing for the film. I introduced you to Nick Stahl. He did not introduce me to Nick Stahl. I introduced you to Wendy Benz, your attorney. He did kind of introduce me to her. I'll give him credit for that. I introduced you to the director, Lucas Seller. Kind of. On and on and on, right? Basically what he's saying is because he opened the door and he introduced me to all these people in that industry, that somehow he's entitled to be a main producer of the film, which he's not. He's an executive producer. He gets the same title if you invested money into the film. If you invested $5,000 in the film, you could have an executive producer credit. I still need $30,000. But these aren't things that you just give to people. You have to purchase them. It's a fucking investment. So he pretty much tried to extort me. And I was like, the fuck? Okay, what are you gonna do? Come steal my hat, bitch? Jesus Christ, you weird ass dude. It was weird. Like, he pretty much tried to strong arm me. But he has nothing. His threats are weak. You know what I mean? That's why we have a love-hate relationship. Anyway, sorry for the long intro. Just for the $10 tier, I know you guys are actually interested in my personal life, and especially when it relates to my career, because I think that this particular tier, with this series, with Wasting Talent, I think that people are interested in it because you're interested in my work. I hope. I don't know. Maybe not. My work is bullshit. I'm a bitch. Let's get we're gonna do Wasting Talent video. If I have time, I'll do another Henry video. I was trying to do 2 videos. I'm pissed off at myself that I didn't. Tomorrow's a big day for me. Karina's like, all right, do 1 video, take 2 Ambiens, pass out, we'll wake up tomorrow, I'll suck your dick, and then it's our anniversary all day. I was like, all right, yeah. I'll be right up. It's like 5 hours later. I was dancing in front of the mirror to the Wedding Singer soundtrack. I swear. It's like, what the fuck? All right. So this is I remember the last chapter that we had done was, I believe that it was when Angie and Alex come to meet me in, they come to meet me at a hotel. So in the book, and I don't know if I really went into detail explaining this, but this is a good opportunity to do so. So Alex is based off a real guy in my life named Alex. This is his real name. He's just like I describe in the book. Although in the book, I make him more of like a sex offender type. And not to make light of that, but the real Alex that I knew was a creep. He was a fucking weird-ass guy. He was in his 30s. So he pretty much, if you remember the story, when I was like 19 years old, I had gone to a sober living house because it was like the last place that my parents were willing to pay for. My dad's like, I'll put you in the sober living, but if you get kicked out of that, you're on the street again. I was like, no, Dad, not the street again. You don't know what goes on there. My dad's like, shut up. Every time I let you come to the house, you fuck Dodgers hands because you take acid. No more. Sick of your games. So he ends up taking me to this sober living house, Lighthouse, if you remember. The guy that ran it was, I forget what his name was, Steve something. He was corrupt. He used to like sell cocaine and wear ski masks, but he ran one of the biggest sober living franchises in Santa Barbara. So, and then he ended up died of an overdose. He got caught in one of the sober living houses in his master bedroom. His weirdo shit. Anyway, I drank at that place and I ended up getting kicked out. I walked in one day, I'd been drinking at the beach, and it wasn't the alcohol that really set me off. I was smoking PCP with my friend Jesse, the guy that goes, hey, take the fucking vodka, bitch, to my mom when we took the Marazine. And I smoked PCP, and if anyone's ever smoked PCP, it's kind of hard to act normal when you're on it. And so I went back to the sober living. I'd been drinking Old English 40s. I was a little tipsy, but more I was spinning off the PCP and just acting like a creep. They probably thought I was on meth. Hey, come here. I need you to drop for me. They had me take a urine analysis test, and then they made me do the breathalyzer, and I blew whatever I blew. I don't remember. A dude or something. And I got kicked out of there. Now, that was like my last stop. I think that was around the time that I had a warrant for my arrest because I'd run out of the courtroom. And what had happened is I'm leaving the sober living, and there's this big fat dude in like a fisherman outfit. He's like, hey, kid. It was like out of a 40s movie. Felt like there was like some spotlight on me. There was like an alley cat that went by. I was like, what the fuck? He's like, kid, you need a place to stay? And I was like, look, man, I ain't on no queer shit or nothing. He's like, no. I got the perfect spot for you. I know this guy. He lives out in Isla Vista. He used to live right here, just like you. He graduated the program. He's doing great, and he loves helping people. I was like, he sounds like a queer to me. He's like, no, it's nothing like that. And that, of course, at 19, in my mind, I thought if I was going to go stay at some older guy's house for free, he's going to make me, like, suck his dick or something, and I was not down. But I was really cold and tired. I was like, well, I'm going to see. If he tries anything, I'm over it. So he ends up taking me to this house, and Alex was cool as fuck. Was not, I got none of these gay predatory vibes off him. But he was, and like right when I met him, he was just acting weird. He had the mannerisms of Hunter, really, like, weird ass like twitches, and he'd like every time you looked at him, you felt like you were tripping on acid or something, you know, because his face would quiver. And he had a stripper pole in his apartment. And this dude was a trust fund baby. He had inherited like millions of dollars, but he wanted to be around young women and drugs all the time. So he became a drug dealer even though he didn't have to be. And he moved down to Santa Barbara. He's from Northern California, moved to Santa Barbara to be a meth dealer in a college town because he knew all the sexual debauchery that would ensue. And my God, that apartment, like, I swear to God, I'd already had like a lot of sex and I was already on some perverted shit before I lived in that house, but that house was fucking wild. Orgies, that was a gnarly house. I'd probably do an entire series on that guy's house alone. Anyway, and the reason that he was at that sober living is because he had gotten caught on a possession case. Back then it was a felony. It was a serious thing. They'd send you to prison over it. And Alex went to the sober living and he kind of did the fake it till you make it thing. He had everybody, including the people at the house, fooled that he was like some like big AA guy and that he was like down to help other struggling addicts. But the truth of the matter is that he was like one of those guys that had a lot of money and would like just love being around people. Like he just liked being around good looking people. That was it. Wasn't bisexual or anything, but like all the dudes that hung out there like were all buff and like wore Speedos. And I was like, what the fuck? And then there was like me. I was like acne faced. I was doing a lot of MySpace at the time, and he gave me my own room and basically made me a runner. I was like selling meth for him. And I'd like go deliver sacks and like, it was a really wild time. I mean, there were like periods where there would be girls that I'd never seen before. Never seen them before. They'd like be in the kitchen. I'd come home from like delivering a sack and I'd like see some girl sitting on the bar stool. And I was like, hey man, he's like, Bethany, right? Is that your name? Yeah, suck my boy's dick right now. I'm filming with the digital camera. Fuck it. I was like, dude, are you... But like, they wouldn't be bad looking girls. And then I'd be like, be getting my dick sucked in the kitchen while he's filming it. What's interesting about that is I didn't realize like how weird the living situation was at that time. He's the guy right in the beginning of the Mike Virgin story. I had moved back in with him after I ran out of the courtroom. So that, I don't know, that time's blurry. When I first met him, I don't think was at that time. I think that was later, like after I stabbed the skinhead. But I ended up going and living with him again. I lived with him 2 different times. And the second time I was on the run. And that's the guy that he was supposed to give me an ounce of heroin. He gave me an ounce of meth. I went on that crazy run. I was crawling on my hands and knees, and I called the rehab, and that's how I made it to Florida, and that's how the Mike Virgin thing happened. That guy, Alex, he somehow got a hold of my mom's credit card. I don't know how. But somehow, like, he got her number and ordered, like, thousands of dollars worth of pizzas after I'd left. And I called him, like, from Florida, and I was like, hey, dude, my mom just said she got like a pizza bill for like fucking $3,000. He's like, that's rent, Ryan. It's called rent. Grow up, man. And he hung up on me. And I didn't hear from the guy again for years, right? So I go on to write Wasting Talent. And when I had to come up with, so Damien is me, but it's me from a very specific period. It's me from like high school to the Mike Virgin period. So it's like 17 to 20-year-old me. In those Stephen Gabriel clips where Jeff and I are shooting up in that old house, I'm walking around, I have the gun, and I just look like shit. Jenny's there. I'm Damien in that time period. So that's the person that I was imagining when I was writing this book. So super interesting aside about Alex, and I'll post this for this tier too, for the $10 tier. The last time I had talked to him, I was 20 years old, and I called him from Florida, and I asked him about the pizza bill, and he's like, that's rent, and he like hung up on me. Never talked to him again right after that point. Fast forward, I go to prison. 2009, I get out in 2013. Wasting Talent gets published in 2014. Around 2015 is when, that's when I really started doing readings. That's when like bigger known writers noticed me, started like endorsing my book, took me under their wing, helped me. You know, it took about a year to get to that point. And my very first it was my second big reading. It was the first time I was ever invited to like a literary event where I was reading with like 5 or 6 other writers. Casey, not a real name, but my ex-fiance, had just broken up with me. I was probably like a week relapsed, and I already had this reading plan. This is the Baker Brothers reading, which you guys have seen footage of, where I go, I'm sorry, I'm short. I used to snort coke in high school, or whatever I say. And I'm on a speedball. I just shot coke and heroin right before that, right before they filmed that. That particular time period, that was in 2015. My mom drove me up to San Francisco because I had this reading, and she wouldn't let me drive by myself because my parents knew how fucked up I was. And they're basically like, ooh, we don't want him driving 6 hours when he's like all gouged out on heroin. So my mom, bless her soul, drove me all the way from Santa Barbara up to San Francisco. And when I got up there, I was still strung out, you know, and it was like typical heroin addict mentality. I was like, all right, I have enough for the next 9 hours. I'm going to do all of it right now. Fuck it. I'll figure it out after the 9-hour period. Like, I never preemptively planned my sacks. You know, I was always one of those junkies that would like run out and then just be like, I'd like start like waving my arms, panicking like I was some fucking lifeguard at a beach and there was a shark. What the fuck? And so I posted on Facebook something to the effect of, I was like, hey, do I have any friends in San Francisco that can get drugs? My friend's withdrawing and he needs them really bad. It's like a public post. And I get a mess. I didn't even realize that I was friends with Alex, but I was friends with Alex at that point. And he reached out to me and he was like, yo, Ryan, it's Alex. I was like, wow, that's weird. I didn't even know we were Facebook friends. And I was like, man, I wrote a book and you're like a main character in it. He was just, I couldn't even see him. We're talking on the phone, but I could like envision his face quivering. Oh, man, that's wild. Oh, you want to hear what happened to me? So he starts telling me, of course he starts going into some crazy ass shit that he's like, yeah, dude, he's like, I have a kid now. I fucking woke up and my girlfriend was dead. She was like fucking 15 years younger than me, man. I know I'm raising this kid, but get this. We're squatting in an abandoned sober living house. I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, this guy had not changed a fucking, not even a little bit in this time. Right? He was the exact same weirdo that I had, you know, last seen him. And he ended up bringing me a sack of heroin and cocaine while I was up there. He just was giving me free drugs up there. It was crazy. And like, of course, he's weird as fuck. I bring him up to this reading and he's meeting like all these famous writers and shit. And they already judge me because I'm just out of my mind on drugs myself. And that's the guy I'm with. I think he was wearing like a leather jacket with like shorts or something. Yeah, they had like spike shoulder pads on it. But that was Alex, you know, and so that's why I based that character off of. Now, of course, Blair, we've talked about this, she never really had, there's not really one particular girlfriend that she's based off of. A lot of it is Kate, a lot of it's Jenny. And that's pretty much it. So it's basically a mix of Kate and Jenny, and then a projection of, like, I guess what I would have wanted, you know, a girl that represented innocence. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I was dating a lot of normies. Well, I was just some rabid junkie. I was like, hey, can you pick me up some milk thistle? I think I'm having a hep C flare up. Oh, yeah. I'll get it before I get off, right when I get off work, babe. I love you. I love you too, sugar butt, or, you know, whatever it was. Now, the last scene that we had talked about, you know, Alex and Angie run off to Las Vegas to get married. Now, if you guys probably know my story pretty well, but by this point, you know that really happened, but it was with Paul. I went to a rave with Paul, and Paul ends up meeting some chick, and he runs off to Vegas, not to marry her, but just like to be with her. He had been my roommate, and he just ditched me. So I kind of based that off of it. And then the threesome. That's kind of interesting, and it's kind of based off something that actually happened to me. Really strange story. So Jenny, I forget what the show was called, but there used to be an MTV show. Was it Intervention? No, it was an MTV show, so it wasn't Intervention. It was like my drug, I don't know, it's like some MTV show about like people that had different problems. So it wasn't just specifically addiction, but there was this girl that I knew, and she was on that show, right? And she had this boyfriend that was like, I don't know, he's probably like 50 something, and she was like 19. She went to high school with me, but I didn't remember her from high school. She was like one of these girls that was really unpopular, had no friends, and then got out of high school and probably got like butt fucked by a construction worker, and then just turned into like some rabid whore. And when I say like, I'm not joking. This chick is probably like one of the grimiest like street walking sluts I've ever met. I mean, it's just bad. I'm not saying that in a derogatory way at all. I'm just trying not to sound as scummy as I actually am. She's dating some guy in his 50s. He was odd as fuck. I used to sell him heroin. I used to go meet up with him, and he'd be butt naked. He'd just open the door, big old hammer cock just hanging out, and he'd be like, hey man, you trying to tag team my bitch? And I'm like, nah dude, I'm strung out on heroin. I don't even have a sex drive. Especially don't want to do shit like that with you, you weirdo. And so this girl, God, I wish I could remember the name of the show, because you guys have probably seen it. In fact, somebody had showed me it. It's on YouTube. If I can find it, I'll definitely post it to this tier. But for some reason, I start hanging out with her and her boyfriend. I don't want to say his name because he's still around, and he's always been mad at me. I've always denied this to him, but it's true. I had just met them, and he was like a big time crack addict. Now, this is the period where Jenny wasn't doing heroin yet, but she was really bad on coke with me, and we were smoking it every day, smoking a shitload of crack together. And we met this couple. The girl's name was Jessica. The guy's name was, we'll just say Lucas, right? Me and him, we're just on this like epic crack run at a motel. We're hanging out with it's like two couples hanging out. Nothing sexual had ever happened with us or anything. And one day I go to get crack with Lucas. Now he was like a Santa Barbara OG. So he'd been there for like, he could like buy ready-made crack in Santa Barbara, and it's not that kind of place, you know. He's probably the only guy I knew that could ever get like ready-made crack in Santa Barbara. Usually if you smoke rock there, you had to buy powder and you had to cook it up. So I'm with him, and I'm selling heroin at the time, so I had a bunch of money. And I remember we bought like $300 worth of crack, like a decent amount. It was like got this like boulder. I'm driving my Volvo, the same Volvo that's in the Gabriel Heroin movie video, that like short form documentary thing he made about me stabbing the skinhead. And we like go down some street and he's like, dude, there's cops behind us. I was like, so? He's like, I have a fucking warrant. I'm like, so? I'm not on probation. We're good. He's like, dude, I'm gonna go to jail. He's like, here, put this up your ass, dude. And honest to God, I thought that he was like, I always got this vibe that he like low-key wanted a butt fuck. And I was like, I was weirded out. To be completely honest with you, kind of. I was weirded out by the guy. But then the siren's going. Brrr. I'm like, fuck, we're getting pulled over. So I grab the crack rock and I shove it up my ass. Mind you, it's not even in cellophane or anything. It's just like a big ass crack boulder. And I like kind of cheek it. Like some of it's in my ass. And I'm like, ugh. Like I didn't have the best hygiene. I could already like imagine what that crack rock was going to smell like. So I don't even remember what the reason they said that we got pulled over. I can't remember, but very quickly I know that they pulled his ass out of the car and arrested him. So he gets arrested and they let me go. I think they had searched the car because he had like a felony warrant or something. I don't really remember, but whatever the case was, I end up going back to the motel with the crack, but without him. So it's me, him, and his girlfriend, Jessica, who's like the biggest whore I've ever met, ever, like in life. She's like to this day, it's all bad with her. Like I was just talking to somebody and like, she's still doing this kind of shit. So me, Jenny, and her are at this motel. Now Jenny had been bi-curious. I mean, she definitely became bisexual since we were dating, probably because I had a small dick. And she's like, I can't feel it anyway, I may as well just eat out a girl. I was like, yeah, I don't even care. And she had told me that she had always wanted to go to Vegas. She had like this whole fantasy, because that's how girls get creative as fuck. There's like names of people. She's like, yeah, and then I'm going to go to Vegas and there's going to be this girl, Angela. We're going to meet her at a nightclub and we'll call her Angie. That's why I named the character Angie in the book, by the way. And we'll call her Angie. And she'll just be our little sex slave for like a weekend. And I'd be like smoking crack. I'd be like, yeah, pass the pipe. Because that's all I cared about. Just wanted her to shut the fuck up so I could get another blast. So we had talked about this pretty extensively. And she was cool. I think she was like the first girlfriend I had that was really into porn when we had sex. And it was always lesbian porn. And I was like, wait a second. How come it's always lesbo porn? And she's like, have I ever told you about Angela? And I was like, no. She's like, let me tell you about Angela. She didn't even talk like that. I don't know. I just like that voice. But so we would have sex when we watched lesbian porn pretty frequently. And so now we're in this motel room. Now the motel that we were staying at was this grimy ass. It looked like a fucking like jail dungeon cell inside of a castle or something. They had like these like rock head showers and shit. It was like it looked like the kind of place, it didn't have this, but it looked like the kind of place that wouldn't even have a toilet. It would just have some like rock hole in the ground that you squat and shit in. It had a toilet, but it seemed like the kind of place that would have something like that. And we're smoking crack. Like we have this shitty, it's like crack that I'd taken in my ass that was like shit stained. I was like, let's smoke it anyway. They're like, yeah, let's do it. So I remember this very clearly. It was interesting. We end up going to the pharmacy together. I think to get needles, maybe. I don't really remember why. But we end up going to, I remember this so clear. We go to the pharmacy that was like right next to the motel we were staying at. We're all cracked out, all three of us. We're like in public. We're like, whoa. You know, like freaking out old people. They're like checking their pulse after they like make eye contact with us because they think we're like possessed by Satan. You know, crack shit. And I remember going like past this magazine rack, and there's Angelina Jolie on the cover. And Jenny had never said anything like this, right? She'd said some like fantasy lesbian things to me like in private, but she looks at the cover of Angelina Jolie and she looks at Jessica and she's like, she's so beautiful. I just want to lick her pussy, to be honest. Jessica's like, me too. And they look at me and I was like, me three. You know, and that pretty much just kind of cemented the trio thing, you know. It was weird, I don't know. It was like this instantaneous kind of like silent contract had been signed that we were gonna have a threesome. I don't know, it's hard to explain. It was just through body language and subtext and shit. So we get back to the motel and we're smoking crack. And oh yeah, Jessica and I are shooting heroin. Right? Jenny didn't do that yet. And Jenny, the night goes on and on and on. Lucas calls from jail, talks to Jessica, and he's like, and she's like, Lucas wants to talk to you. I was like, all right. I get on the phone. He's like, hey, look, bro, I'm in jail, and I don't know when I'm getting out, but keep your fucking hands off Jessica, dog. I was like, what would make you think I'm doing anything with your girl, man? I'm here with my girlfriend. He's like, I know what kind of fucking whore she is, bro. I gotta go. Some black folks trying to use the phone. I gotta go by. I was like, what the fuck, dude? So, it was kind of weird that call came in because maybe like 5 minutes later, Jenny comes up to me and she's like, the time's now. And I was like, for what? A threesome. I gotta be honest, I was so fucking cracked out that night that like, you could have drawn a doodle of a cock on a binder and I would have like probably been like, oh yeah, yup. It was that kind of crack night. So now I'm put in a weird position because this girl's boyfriend had just been, on the phone with me telling me not to do it to her. Or not to do anything with her. And I got my girlfriend who's like possessed by, she's like literally lesbian possessed by crack. I know I've really been going off the rails with lesbian stuff lately. And I'm nothing against them. I have a lot of friends that are lesbians, but it's all in good fun. I just hope people don't construe it that way. And yes, I feel obligated to say that because it makes me feel bad. Like, I don't know. I don't like hurting people's feelings like when I'm joking, you know. And I gotta get over that because like stand-up comedians do shit all the time like that and they don't apologize. But sorry, lesbians. So I'm in this weird position. I have to say something to her to try to like get it to go down. Now, like I said, it had already been silently negotiated when we were at the store. All it was like, yeah, me three. And they both looked at me. I felt like I was on like a risque episode of Three's Company. So Jenny's like, look, I'm going to take a shower. Close it. She like did some weird whip of her head or something. I was like, what the fuck? So she goes and takes a shower. So I'm just with Jeff. Oh, yeah, I remember this too. This was so dirtbag. It's how much of a scumbag I was during that point. For some reason, I didn't have more heroin on me. I was selling it at the time. I don't remember why, but for some reason, I had it, but it wasn't there. It may have been during the time where I was getting pulled over a lot, so I was keeping like the majority of my sack at my parents' house. But I remember like towards the end of the night, I ran out. and she had done a fat speedball. We were shooting the crack and heroin. We were putting vinegar with the crack, breaking it down, mixing it with heroin, and like doing these fat speedballs of it. She was one of those girls that didn't have any veins. She was like 19 and already her veins were blown out. Just like her butthole. She had like a donut butthole. I've never seen it before. It looked like it was inflatable. It was fucking gnarly. And I remember hitting her like on the back of the leg, like some like super obscure, hard to hit vein, and the blood coagulated. When sometimes that happens, you pull the plunger, the syringe back, blood will steam in, and it will coagulate. Meaning that if you only have a small window of time to hit, right? Once the blood comes in, you have to push it down pretty quickly, like within 5 minutes, where the blood will harden and coagulate. Now, why, when you see blood, don't you just push it immediately down? Because sometimes when you register and blood comes up, there's like the slightest movement and you fall out of the vein, and then you have to like find it again. So this is what ends up happening. I run out, and there were multiple times that different syringes had coagulated throughout the night. With this girl whose boyfriend had just told me she was like he's like, yeah, she'll take on entire states, dog. She's a whore. And I just had all of these syringes that were coagulated with blood, but I was out of heroin, and I think I had to go up to my parents' house to get more. Anyway, I end up taking all of the hardened out blood out because I'm like fiending for more heroin. And I like put all of these different coagulated blood shots like into a spoon. It looks like Play-Doh. That's like what the blood looks like. It's like hardened gel like that. Like weird, like dry gel or something. And I put it all in a spoon and I cook up her blood and I hit my neck with it. I remember I was like, yeah, and she's like, that's gross. I was like, yeah, I'm a piece of shit. So, and what's funny is I was doing that while Jenny was in the shower, while I'm supposed to be closing the deal. I was like, yeah, I'm gross. I was like, hey, do you want to have a threesome with me and Jenny? And she's like, what? I was like, fuck, that did not go as well as I thought it would. I thought this chick was a whore. And remember, I'm cracked out of my mind, so I'm already awkward. You know, and I'm like, I don't know, I'll give you money. I'll give you like $30. She just wants to eat you out. She's like, are you serious? I knew this. See, Lucas told me that you guys were going to be on some weirdo shit. She got weird. She got mad. We're arguing, right? The shower is fucking blasting out in the distance. Jenny can't hear what's going on. And I basically have to beg her. Like, I get all, like, psychological with her, and I was like, look. It was the thing. She'd never had a threesome. I was like, you've had a threesome. Come on, you're on an MTV show about being a crack whore. You can't have a threesome with, like, two people that have been fucking nice to you? What's up? She's like, I'm listening. I was like, look, it's her first threesome. Do you know how fucking rejected she'll feel if you say no? Like, I was really trying to sell it more for my girl's self-esteem because I loved her. I don't want her to be hurt. She's like, then can I go home? I'm creeped out. I'm just over it. Like, I'm over being here. I'm creeped out by the whole thing. And she's like, and to be real, I just love cock so much. I was like, really? I would have never guessed that. All right. So Jenny doesn't realize that we've been, like, arguing. I felt like I was negotiating with some sort of, like, hostage situation, but I was negotiating a threesome with my girl and this girl. So Jenny comes out of the shower, wet hair. And, you know, she probably thought she looked hot. She looked like the Exorcist girl. I mean, her hair's all matted, horrible fucking acne everywhere. Just been on a crack run. She's got like some 70s mushroom bush because we like have been living in motels and she like doesn't have any like fucking razors. And now I don't know if that was true, but she didn't look the best that she did. Beautiful soul, but she looked shot. I mean, I looked shot out at the time myself. Not to speak ill on the dead. I mean, Jenny would be laughing if she was sitting here with us today listening to this. She'd for sure think it's funny. So she comes out butt naked. And she's like, leans into this like door frame in the bathroom like this. Like she's like this, butt naked. She's like, hey. And me and Jessica start laughing because it's just so absurd. Like Jenny doesn't even realize that that this girl didn't want to do it. I think she just figured because I had the gift of gab that like I was gonna handle it. Like she was gonna come out and we were just gonna have this wild like insane lesbian experience or something. And as soon as we start laughing, she recognizes that we're laughing at her. And she like, I felt really bad for her. She like hugs herself and she's like, why are you laughing at me? And it's like some really mortified, like awkward crack moment, you know, we're just like, I'm like, no, baby, we're not laughing. Jessica wants to eat your pussy. She's like, no, I'm weirded out now. I was like, Jenny. She said, yeah. And Jenny's like, oh. And the reason that I'm explaining it like this is if you've ever smoked crack, you understand how weird things get. So, like, it's just set this very fucking awkward precedent. Like, now everything was just weird. Jenny's naked. Jessica and I are not. And I was like, I'll take my shirt off. But I wanted to leave my boxers on. And I'm not joking. This is not to make you laugh. I did not know if I had a shit stain on the bottom of my boxers or not. So I didn't want to take them off. So the whole thing looked even weirder. She's naked. I'm in my boxers. And like, I have to like take on the role of director. I'm like, all right, look. Jessica, you go in the bed. Get naked. And I'm going to watch you guys go at it. And then I'm going to come in. And I was like, am I allowed to fuck her? Jenny's like, anything goes right now. I was like, all right, cool. I'm just trying to be respectful. She's like, I appreciate you. I was like, yeah. So Jessica ends up going on the bed. It was the fucking weirdest thing. Jenny gets on top of her. They're kissing awkwardly. Eventually they go down on each other. Whatever. The whole thing goes down, right? And Jenny comes pretty quickly. Like, definitely quicker than normal. You could tell this was something she was like really wanting to do. And I go to, like, I'm doing my thing. Jenny gives me a head, whatever. And I'm cracked out. And the thing is, I know that it's like paradoxical and it sounds odd. And no one ever believes me when I say it. But for some reason, cocaine is the one drug that makes me perform better sexually. I am a million times, I can last forever. I have rhythm. There's like a soundtrack to it, even if there's not music on. I'm just like all rhythmic. I last for a long time. And after they do their thing, and after Jenny does the thing with me, I go in to fuck Jessica. And I remember, and it was like she had, like, I put her legs up on my shoulders and I was fucking her. And I remember looking over at Jenny and I could see the pain in her eyes. It was like she got her rocks off and like I was so cracked out. Like I thought that like anything went because I asked her. But you could tell that it was hurting her. And like I'm like mid pump and I was like, oh. And I just stopped and I like couldn't finish. And I went to the bathroom and beat off for real. And that was that. And so after that point, after that happened, it was all bad. Like, this girl, basically, that's a story that I've really, like, been hesitant to ever tell because this dude Lucas has asked me about it like a million times. He's like, you fucked my girl. At one point when I had that Milpas house, he was all cracked out. He was standing out in the parking lot at like 4 a.m. He's like, you fucked my girl. I know you did. Come out here, Leona, you bitch. And I was like pretending like I wasn't home. I'm like looking out my window and like neighbors' lights are going on and shit. It was fucking crazy, but I've never admitted it to him. I didn't know the guy that well. Because, like, as I've said, like, I don't have a lot of morals, but one thing that I've always been good about is I don't hook up with my homies' girls, you know. And I've been in like plenty of situations where girls that, dude, I've had like close friends where I'm friends with like the couple, like I'm friends with the dude and the girl, like I've known them for years, and the girl will like hit on me like without them, and I'll usually tell them to my homeboys, be like, look, I gotta be honest, when you went to go get cigarettes, your chick said that like she could probably suck my dick and get away with it. What about that? That's such bullshit. That's such bullshit, Eric. Fuck Ryan. He's such a fucking bullshitter. And it's got me into some awkward situations, but I'm loyal as a fault. Loyal to a fault to my friends. And that's one thing I don't know. I guess it's just such a fear of mine that I've always been very conscientious of like not doing that. Right? So that is, just so you know, because I read that chapter last time, I'm not even going to like call this a wasting talent story. I'm just going to call it the threesome. And basically, this is for the $10 tier. I just wanted to kind of go into some of the origins of like where some of the source material came from. So you can know that a lot of this book is actually 80% of it's true. You know, maybe it's not the same names, maybe it's not the exact same locations or situations, but it's true. You know, because you've heard so much of my fucking life. And I'm like getting to the point where even things where at one point I was like, I'll never talk about that. I'm like to the point where I'm like, fuck it, I need content. I'll tell anything. Fuck it. And you know, like the Henry series, they're on currently. Karina is definitely not stoked that I'm talking about this shit right now. It's become like a major thing with us, but like whatever, you know. Tomorrow's my big day. Go get him, champ. I appreciate you guys in this tier. I know you're a little more flexible than the $3 tier. I know that you find entertainment in the wasting talent stuff, and I do appreciate that because I've always been self-conscious about this particular series. When I post, I'm gonna explain that it's not a wasting talent video. It was originally supposed to be, but it just turned into its own thing. I appreciate each and every one of you. I really do. Thank you all that support me. Thank you, sponsors. Thank you, everyone. Palabra.